Hello, students. Good evening. So, one more novel today we are going to discuss Pamela or Virtue Rewarded by Samuel Richardson. And this novel is very interesting, and we are going to discuss the theme and not exactly theme. Today we are going to discuss plot and 2-3 videos I am going to make on it. First is that's a beginning today, very short video I'm making, and then tomorrow or day after tomorrow it will be one will be in Hindi and another one will be in English, right? So here actually I wanted to tell you that uh, first of all we are going to discuss about the author Samuel Richardson. So here just a very basic introduction of the author, because I am going to make another video on his biography. Samuel Richardson is the it's a very tallest personality, and uh, his introduction is very much, his life is very much interesting. So we are going to discuss separately, right? But yes, here introduction of the author Samuel Richardson, baptized in 19 August 1689, and he died in on 4th July 1761. And he was an English writer and printer known for three epistolary novels. Epistolary novels means the plot or the story moves with the letter, right? So here letter or email nowadays, that's a when story moves with email or blog or pictures or reels, this is called epistolary novel, right? So here he is known for he's no three novels are was an English writer and printer known for three epistolary novels, and then it was his identity, because he was famous for three epistolary novels: Pamela or Virtue Rewarded, which was published in 1740. Then Clarissa, on the history of a young lady, published in 1748, and the history of Sir Charles Grandison, published in 1753. He printed almost 500 works. That's something, right? Including journals and magazines, working periodically with the London booksellers seller Andrew Miller, right? So this is very basic introduction. And then about Pamela or Virtue Rewarded is an epistolary novel first published in 1740 by the English writer Samuel Richardson, considered one of the first true English novels. That actually it was the novel which is written properly in the novel format or writing style, what is suggested for novel writing. So that is considered one of the first true English novels, Pamela, and it serves as a Richardson's version of conduct literature about marriage. And what is conduct literature? That literature which gives the education for social norms and all. So Pamela gives us uh, teaches us for social norms and all, and that is why this novel is considered as conduct literature, right? Conduct novel, right? Okay. 2 years after the publication of Pamela, Richardson published a sequel. That's very important for you. Please take down, and when you handle the question of Pamela in exam, so you should give extra information that after 2 years, 2 years after the publication of Pamela, Richardson published sequel Pamela in Her Exalted Condition. That was the sequel which was published in 1742 after 2 years of Pamela, and he revised the theme of the Rake in Clarissa 1748, right? So that is also another information, and sought to create a male Pamela. That is one more interesting fact in Sir Charles Grandison in 1753. So please note down, this is very important information about all these three publications, right? So please take down and remember, and if you remember with year wise, so that will be good to you, right? Now, since Ian Watt discussed it in The Rise of the Novel, studies in Defoe, Richardson, and Fielding in 1957, literary critics and historians have generally agreed that Pamela played a critical role in the development of the novel in English. So that's Ian Watt. He was the author, and he discussed in his work The Rise of Novel, studies in Defoe, Richardson, and Fielding. So he has written this, and in this he discussed about that Pamela played a very important role in development of novel in English. Right now, at the outset, this was the introduction of the author and little bit facts about the novel. Right now, very soon, as I told you that today I'm going to make short video. So here, first of all, let me tell you that what are the characters, right? So here characters are three families basically are discussed, actually four families are discussed, but in that detail I'm not going to go. So here basic what are the important families. So three families will come, we are going to meet. First family is Andrew's family. Andrew's family, we are meeting three members: husband, wife, and daughter. Husband Mr. Andrews, wife is Mrs. Andrews, and their daughter is Pamela Andrews. That's the first family, Andrews family. Number two, B family. And B family, we meet three members of B family: Lady B, mother, and son Mr. B, and Lady Davers, that's a daughter, married daughter, right? She is, so these are the three members of B family. And third family is Sally Godfrey, and she's the Godfrey, sorry, Sally Godfrey, she's the mother, and her daughter is Miss Goodwin, and she's illegitimate daughter. So when we discuss, then we'll come to know that what about this family. Right now, very short, I'm just reading the characters. That's a father, Mr. John Andrews. So please take care, father's name is Mr. John Andrews. So Pamela's father and her chief correspondent is Mr. John Andrews, who is Pamela's father, and he is virtuous and literate like his daughter, formerly the master of a school. So Pamela's father had been the master of school, though his fortunes have since declined, and because of declination of fortune, he is now an agricultural laborer, and he had two sons now dead. So tragedy happens with the Andrews family, and Pamela's two brothers have already died, have been died, and who pauperized him before dying, and then they were they were facing financial crunch that time, right? And Pamela credits both her parents with forming her character by educating her in virtue and giving her an example of honest, cheerful, and patriotic. Though they are poor people nowadays, but then as Pamela's father had been school teacher, and then he instills values in Pamela, right? So that is very important role of father John Andrews. Then Mrs. Elizabeth Andrews. So Mrs. Elizabeth, Pamela's mother, who has no independent presence in the novel. So that's a direct, it's not direct, we don't meet directly Mrs. Elizabeth Andrews, Pamela's mother, but like Pamela's father, Pamela's mother is simple but virtuous. So very noble, nice family they come, is Andrews family. Right now, meeting to Pamela, that's a heroine or female protagonist of the novel, and that novel is name of the novel is Pamela, and a lively, pretty, and courageous maid servant. Though she's a maid servant, but it's a very pretty and lively, courageous, age 15, very young, just 15, and who is the subject to sexual advances of her new master, Mr. B, following the death of his mother, Lady B, and she's a devoted daughter to her impoverished parents, Mr. and Mrs. Andrews, to whom she writes a prodigious number of letters. You know that there's a number of letters she used to write to her parents, and whom she credits with the moral formation that prompts her to defend her purity at all costs, right? So she's a very little and little girl, pretty, lively, courageous, but she never compromises with her chastity, right? She understands that's how to maintain our dignity and purity, and she never loses her purity, right? So that is the strength of Pamela. Now, Lady B. Next character, Lady B. That's a Pamela's original employer, the mother of Miss B and Lady Davis. And Lady B was morally upright. She's also good and kind to Pamela, and educating her and contributing to the formation of her virtuous character. On her deathbed, she told her son to look after all the Bedfordshire servant. So first place Bedfordshire in London, setting is in Bedfordshire, London. So we are going to meet, and then especially Pamela. Now next, Lady Davers, as we discussed earlier, that's the Lady Davers, the daughter of Miss Lady B, Mrs. Lady B, and Lady B, actually she's known as the married elder sister of Mr. B, to whom the squire's Bedfordshire servants apply when trying to enlist some aid for Pamela, and she objects strenuously to the union of her brother with their mother's waiting maid, subjecting Pamela to a harrowing afternoon of insults and bullying, but eventually comes to accept and value her new sister-in-law. In the beginning, she does not accept Pamela as her sister-in-law, but later on she accepts because of Pamela's good nature. Right now, maid servant housekeepers, the two housekeepers we are going to make, and two places are there, Bedfordshire and Lincolnshire, right? So the elderly housekeeper of Mr. B's Bedfordshire estate, one of the virtuous servants who applies to Lady Rivers on behalf of Pamela, and she has a genteel background and is an able manager. Um, Presumably the linchpin of the well ordered Bedfordshire household. Despite her good nature and her motherly concern for Pamela, however, she is nearly useless in defending her young friend from their master's lecherous advances. So overall, what's the Mrs. Jarvis is the housekeeper in Bedfordshire State, but she's a very good, gentle lady and very kind to Pamela and good-natured lady. But then she's not able to protect Pamela from Mr. B sometimes. So, but overall, she's a very good lady. And then next house keeper, and she's just opposite to Mr. Jarvis, Mrs. Jarvis. She's housekeeper in Bedfordshire Estate, and Juicus is she's also housekeeper, but she's in Lincolnshire State. And Pamela's primary warder during the period of her captivity, and then Pamela represents her as a brazen villain because she beats Pamela, and that's why Pamela, she used to say her brazen villain, and physically hideous and sexually ambiguous, though the hyperbolic contributions of depravity may be Pamela's way of deflecting blame from Mr. B, about whom her feelings are more conflicted. Mrs. Jucas is devoted to her master to a fault. She is ready to commit a wrong in his service, not including assisting in an attempted rape of Pamela, as she is to wait loyally on that same Pamela once Miss B has decided to elevate and marry her. What is Mrs. Jucas is very negative character. She's housekeeper in Lincolnshire State, and she's very cruel to Pamela, and she's always she supports Mr. B, though she knows that Mr. B is a is a not good person, but then she supports him. And why? Because of sycophancy, or because of what we can say, that flattery. She does not speak anything in favor of Pamela. So that is there. Now Mr. Williams, that's also important character, the priest, or we can say curate, a junior pastor of Mr. B's parish in Lincolnshire. Pamela engages his assistance in her efforts to escape her captivity, and she finds him dutiful but ineffectual. He makes an unsuccessful bid to become Pamela's husband, and his efforts on her behalf come decisively to naught when Mr. B sends him to debtor's prison. Actually, when Pamela is captivated in Lincolnshire, so this person, he is a priest, Mr. William, and he supports Pamela, and he exchanges letters and all, and but he pays for it, and then he is not so much effective, so much helpful to Pamela, but by heart he tries to help Pamela always. Now two characters we had already discussed, Sally Godfrey and Miss Goodwin. So Mr. B's mistress from his college days, and she bore him a child, the for future Miss Goodwin, and then fled to Jamaica, where she is now happily married. So she shifts to Jamaica, and then she has one illegitimate child named Miss Goodwin, and Mr. B's illegitimate daughter by Sally Godfrey, and she lives at boarding school in Bedfordshire and does not know who her parents are. She addresses Mr. B as her uncle, right? So that is there. Now these are the very what we can say, that minor characters. So I'm not going to discuss in next video. I am going to tell about it, but about them. But yes, here I'm going to explain the story, है ना, and story, very short story I'm going to speak. So let us see first. That's all. As a story starts, and then starts with the Mrs. B, Lady B. She's on deathbed, and she's requesting to Mr. B. Mr. B is just 20 years old, her son, young son, and she requested that Pamela helped me a lot, and she's a good young girl, and she's always loyal to me, and that's why when I will die, so don't leave Pamela alone, because she comes from poor family, but she's very honest this way. Lady B is requesting to Mr. B, and she tries to convince Mr. B that not to throw any servant, but especially Pamela, and then Mr. B agrees. And when Mrs. Lady B dies, and then all the servants are continued, all the servants are they just continue with their work. But then there is inclination. Mr. B is more inclined to Pamela, and he tries to take advantage, physical advantage of Pamela. So many a times, after some time, after death, like Mrs. Lady B's death, after some time he was very normal and very kind to everyone, and he declares that I'm not going to throw anyone, and you just continue with your work. And he is very normal and very good to Pamela also. But then varies the after certain a period of time, and then he starts taking advantage of Pamela. And then many a time he just kisses to Pamela, and then Pamela does not like all these. And he she tries to maintain her dignity and everything. But Mr. B Mr. B does not understand, and then she rejects. Even sometimes she rebukes him, but then Mr. B takes advantage. And one day when she was changing her clothes at night, and this was the height. And then he Mr. B just keeps himself in a cupboard. He hides himself in a cupboard. And then when she was changing her clothes, and then as she comes to know that, and she gets annoyed, and she says that this is too much, and now this is the right time I should leave for my parents. Though we are poor, but then we will I am not going to compromise in any way. And it is better I should leave now. So that Mr. B understands that something which is he should not have done this way, but then it is done. And then again Mr. B tries to touch or kiss Pamela. So what Pamela can do? So one day Pamela discusses this matter with Mrs. Jarvis. And then Mrs. Jarvis is very much kind and very motherly to Pamela. So she discusses, and then she takes opinion what to do now, because I in this condition I'm not able to continue. So Mrs. Jarvis suggests that just take care, and then you should busy here, and you should be among us, as something like she suggests. But then as Mr. B comes to know that this is shared with the senior lady of house, and she's like my mother, and this matter is already discussed with Mrs. Jarvis. And he gets annoyed, and he says that now Pamela should be punished. And then he decides that he writes one letter to Pamela's parents, that Pamela is in love with one priest, and she love with one person, and she goes here and there. This way he allegates Pamela, and Pamela and then parents are worried. And uh, what here he says that that is why I am sending her to another place for her safety. And I will find an alliance for her marriage. This way he writes one letter to Pamela's parents. Now Pamela does not know all these, and she writes letter. And then one day she comes she comes to know that her letters are not properly delivered to her parents, and then she is very sad now, and then she decides to leave her parents. Now it is final, she takes final decision. And here the person who is taking her to her parents, and then that's a person, he is very loyal to Mr. B also. And then on the way, he takes Pamela to, instead of taking her to her parents, he takes her to Lincolnshire. And here parents, Mr. B has already written to parents that I'm finding out one alliance, and right now I'm sending her to a safe place because of her safety. And she's captivated in another estate which is also belongs to Mr. B, and Mr. B is a very very rich person. And then in Lincolnshire he is having a very big mansion bungalow, Bedfordshire, and then in Lincolnshire also very big state he's having. So that's the girl Pamela, she is captivated there, or she is kept there. Now that is also Mr. B's estate. So as she reaches to Lincolnshire, and where one more housekeeper, one that is her she is Mrs. Ducas. So Mrs. Ducas is just opposite to Mrs. Jarvis. She is very much cruel, and then she starts beating, and then that is she says in the very first day, she says that you have to share bed with me, so that she can help Mr. B, because she knows all intentions of Mr. B, and she's in contact with Mr. B. And then Pamela is not able to understand, and she's very sad, and what to do. So what she knows that my letters and then are not reaching to my parents. So she meets here, she meets Mr. Williams. And Mr. Williams is a the priest, curator. So she meets him, and then Mr. Williams is very genuine and helpful person. And then she gives letters, so she goes to garden, and where they exchange, like she keeps letters, and then she says that please send these letters to my parents, post for my parents. Or this way she used to keep letters in a garden, one place somewhere. And then Mr. Williams help, and but because of innocency or because of immaturity, Mr. Williams shares one day shares this with Mrs. Ducas. And then Mrs. Ducas sees all the letters, and then she is very cruel to Pamela. And she shows these letters to one day from Bedfordshire to Lincolnshire. One day Mr. B comes, and then she shows all the letters. As Mr. B reads the letter, and then somewhat that's her heart changes, and he feels that no, this is not good. Instead of getting angry, he feels that no, I am mistaken. And then he does not and then Pamela is scared like anything, and she leaves for her parent, she leaves home for parent. But she has to face, and on the way, as she was on the way, and then she has to face two cows, and then she's scared, and she comes back because she thinks that these are the bulls. And then she becomes nervous, and she comes back, to home in Lincolnshire. And then as she got to know that my letters have already being my letters are being shown to Mr. B, and Mr. B has already read my letters. And then she tries to run away. So she just tries to jump from the wall, but she injured, and then she drops the idea that I cannot go alone to my parents. Anyhow, she gives up, and she is in the Lincolnshire, she's at home now. but she requests continuously. Has requested to Mr. B that please let me go, please permit me, I cannot live here. And then he is very soft now after reading. However, that is very unexpected behavior. But Mr. B, as he reads all letters of Pamela, and in letters she is complaining about Mr. B, and something nonsense also she has written. She has written for Mrs. Ducas also. She's a very cruel and cruel lady. Something something. She uses some words for Mrs. Ducas. So Mrs. Ducas becomes very annoyed, and then she takes revenge this way that one day there is a young servant named Nani. So what Mr. B is before this I skip, sorry, I forget. Before reading letters, one day Mr. B comes to Lincolnshire, and he talks with the Ducas, Mrs. Ducas, and then Ducas helps, and then Mr. B disguises in, like, he wears Nanny's dress, and then he sleeps in the bed with the Pamela, where Pamela is sleeping, and beside Pamela he sleeps. And then as Pamela comes to know that Mr. B is sleeping with her, and then she acts actually as she's fainted. And then Mr. B, and then she decides that what is the situation now, I cannot stay here, I have to leave home, and then she decides to leave whatever the situation, and finally she leaves. As she leaves the home, and that on the way, here Mr. B reads Pamela's letter, as Mrs. Ducas shows all the letters. Then Mr. B does not express like in a negative way. On the contrary, he is very cool, and he feels something, and he shows sympathy towards Pamela, and he writes one letter to Pamela that I'm very sorry, I apologize for this, and then I understand that since long time my behavior is very bad to you, and I'm extremely sorry for that. But I cannot and when Pamela was leaving home, she is also feeling very bad. But then situation does not allow her to stay because day by day his advances, Mr. B's advances towards Pamela, and then he's not able to understand that Pamela is not that kind of girl, and she's not going to surrender. She says that one day Mr. B says that I am going to get married with you, but then she understands that that is not real marriage for taking my physical advantage. He is just getting married, and she says that not possible, and I am not agree with any proposal, and then she leaves home. But on the way, as she receives a letter of Mr. B, and then she comes to know that Mr. B is sick now, and he is realizing his mistake, and then she could not resist herself, could not stop, and then herself, and she comes back. And as she comes back to Lincolnshire, and then Mr. B says that I'm extremely sorry, and I'm religiously telling you that we are going to get married. And then she writes her parents, and Mr. B writes that intimate Pamela's parents that we are going to get married. So first look and first time, as Mr. John Andrews, Pamela's father, comes to know that Mr. B is ready to get married with Pamela, because he knows everything. They, mother and father, they know everything. And he thinks that it's all plotting against my daughter, and then he would take advantage, physical advantage, and then my daughter will be left out. But it is not happened, because now this time Mr. B is very serious. And then they do marriage, and it's a very small, she says that clean the make the chapel clean, and then here in that chapel we are going to get married. So she says to Mr. B that make this chapel clean, and then that in that chapel, with some selected people, they got married. And then as they got married, and as Mr. B's sister comes to know that that's a mm, uh, Lady Devils, and then as she comes to know that my brother has got married with a servant, she's a servant, and she gets annoyed. And then she could not accept Pamela as her sister-in-law, and then she vomits, and she tells, actually in the meanwhile what happened after marriage, immediately Mr. B has to go to take care of his friend. He is sick, so that as he goes, and then she goes Pamela's room, and then she says that she opens the story about that's a that lady Sally. And she says that, that my brother had one illegitimate child, and her name is Goodwin, Miss Goodwin, and she lives in hostel. So Pamela here shows her she's a virtue rewarded, and she's very virtuous. And Pamela very calm and coolly she accepts that illegitimate child, and she says that no problem, I am going to accept. And then she accepts, and then as she gets married, and she helps all those who helped once upon a time to Pamela. Because here one thing I forgot to tell you, that when he takes much advantage, and he every day when he advances to Mr. B advances to Pamela when he was not serious. And then Mr. Williams goes to London, like a colony here and there, and he talks about Mr. B, that see Mr. B is doing like this to Pamela. And then people are very silent, they are mute, they say, no, no, we cannot go against Mr. B, he is very gentleman. And he's a very big owner of two estates, and we cannot help this way openly, we cannot do anything, and it might be Pamela's mistake, and she might be alluring Mr. B. And this way people speak different, they gossiping they do. But then finally when everything is happen, and then she is married now, but she does not keep anything in her mind, and she helps all those, and she thanks everyone, and she pays those in her bedtime who helped her, all the servant and every, because now she is the owner of the estate. But her behavior 1%, she does not change, she is very simple, very kind, and then she helps everyone. And this way she wins heart of elite family, who elite friends of of the society where Mr. B moves. And then earlier they were not ready to accept Pamela as a owner of these states, and then wife of Mr. B. But then because of her nature, she wins. She win the heart of everyone, so many, and then they accept. And Pamela shows her great heart towards Miss Goodwin also, because she says okay, no problem, and she accept because this lady Goodwin's mother, she's in Jamaica and she's settled now. So that's a Sally Godfrey, and she gets another marriage, and she is happy. So that she becomes mother of this girl also. And then editor writes at last, when novel ends, then editor writes that Pamela she's blessed to have 5 6 children, and she has won the hearts of so many, and then she is being loved by everyone because of her nature. And we should learn from Pamela. That she comes from very poor family, but then she does not lose her chastity. And that she may have taken lot of advantage from Mr. B, but because, and then every time, every step, she shows her greatness. And this way Pamela is a very very gentle lady, right? So conclusion is that that's a conclusion that Samuel Richardson's Pamela explores the difference between the wealthy upper class and the poor lower class in 18th century Britain. While virtuous characters in the book often receive material rewards for their good behavior, this does not mean that the wealthiest characters are always the most moral, right? Why? Because if you have money, muscle, power, then you are morally, or by default you are morally good. But here in Once Upon a Time in 17th century, author had written that Pamela was not that kind of lady. Through Pamela, he teaches us that whatever advances, whatever we are doing, and how much advanced we are, but then finally what counts are our chastity, our purity, our honesty counts. And that till this earth will be there, and technically and all the ways, though we have achieved everything, but if we have lost our our purity, our chastity, then we have lost everything, first thing. And second thing, that we have to be benevolent, we have to be always very soft, kind, and this way we can win the heart of everyone. So this is the conclusion of the novel. So thank you so much, and you're always most welcome. I'm going to make another video in Hindi and in one mixed language further, right? Thank you so much. God bless you.